Good morning and welcome to Ginger Welsh Allotments. My job for today is to get my broad beans in and my garlic. So the first thing I need to do is to prepare the ground with bloodfish and bone, and I also need to dig over where I'm going to put the garlic because there's a bit of weeds there. I'll show you now. So this section is where I'm going to put the garlic, and I just need to give it a dig over. And on this section I need to rake in the bloodfish or bone, and while I'm at it I'm going to weed the cauliflowers there. So I've cleared the area of all weeds now, so I'm just going to spread the bloodfish and bone over the two patches. So I've broken these bulbs up and I'm just going to plant them about 10 centimetres apart and about an inch into the ground. So I've just put some sticks in the ground to mark where my garlic is running to, so that when I come to cover it over for the winter with the fleece, I'll know where I'm putting my pegs and covering to. And so on to planting my broad beans. So I've used a dibber and I've made some holes 5 centimetres deep, and how I plant my broad beans is, hopefully I'll be able to show you, I do that measurement, so I plant along and along and along and along, and that way you should get good spacing between your plants and not waste much soil. So I've gone for one row of 3 and then one row of 2 in the middle, and then another row of 3 and then another row of 2. So it's a bit like a checkerboard, if that makes any sense. So now I'm going to go and plant the beans and then cover them over with the soil, and when I come back after lunch I will cover the whole thing over with fleece. So I'll just water in the beans and the garlic. I'll water the garlic between the rows, not directly onto them. And if they don't grow, I will grow some more in the spring and fill in the bits that haven't grown. So hopefully that should be a lovely job. So now that that's all watered, the garlic's watered and the broad beans are watered, I can get on with doing some weeding. So I'm going to weed the cauliflowers now. And I just wanted to say I did run out of Bunyard Express, which is the broad beans I used, and I had some off my neighbour Adrian, who happens to be planting his broad beans today, but he's got a humongous bag of broad beans, so I had about 10 off him, so we'll see which ones grow better. So the cauliflowers have now been weeded, and I'm hoping after lunch I'll remember to bring over the piping I use, like on here, the white piping. I've got a big sort of reel of that in the house, and I'm going to bring it over and hopefully make this bit a bit more permanent, because now that the cauliflowers are growing, they're going to outgrow that covering soon. But before lunch I'm going to turn my attention over to the compost heap, because I want to try and get these doors on today if I can. And you can see the other two doors are laying on the floor, but they're a bit tall for the actual compost structure. If I come around this side, so you can see that's where the compost heap ends, and then it's like that tall. So I reckon if I cut it, well, handily, if I cut it along that third one down there, I should then get a couple more nice bits of timber for the ongoing strawberry planter. So I'm just going to go and get my saw from the car and cut the bits of wood down, and hopefully then I'll be able to attach them. So I managed to cut down one length of the doors, and I've still got the other two to do, but I've been summoned home for lunch now, so I better go. I'll let you know how I get on this afternoon. So I've come back after lunch and I brought my pipe in with me, and I'm going to use this one as a guide for the measurement I need. So I'll put that there, and I want a little excess for where it goes into the ground, so I reckon about here. So I'm going to cut it with a hacksaw, and then I'll use this to measure the rest of the piping. So I'm just checking it in the ground to make sure the length is okay, and that's absolutely fine, because the broad beans are not going to grow that much over the winter, and by the time they reach the top here it'll be time to take the netting off anyway, so that'll all be great. So I'll use this now and cut another 3 lengths. So I'm just going to put the hoops in place using this metal rod as a pilot hole, essentially, to make the hole, and then put the piping in, and then I'll put the fleece on top. Now, if there's one thing I hate on the allotment, it is netting, fleecing, anything like that, because it always turns into such a big mission. And this is a case in point. My fleece is not big enough to go over the hoops, so I'm hoping I've got enough length to put one this side. I've gone home and got some pegs to peg them in, and hopefully that will work. But if there's one thing I wish I had a magic wand to do over the allotment, it would be netting. It wouldn't be weeding. I don't mind weeding, I don't mind digging, I don't mind anything like that, but netting, I always find a right pain in the posterior. So anyway, as you can see, I've put the fleece on, and now I'm hoping that I'll be able to get enough for the other side. So I'll go and have a look at that now. So as predicted, the netting was a right nuisance, and I've ended up, I don't know if you can see, it's quite seamless. I've ended up putting some netting on and some fleece on, and I'll go online tonight and I'll order a couple of wider fleeces, and I'll come back over and take this off and do it properly at some point soon. So I'm now going to go and get on with a little bit more work on the doors of the compost heap. So in the dying light of today, I thought I'd show you the pretty sunset, followed by the doors on my compost heap. So that's one job finished anyway. So I've put the doors on in that way because I thought if I was shoveling one from the other, it might be easier if I had the doors so that they won't get in each other's way. So I'm very pleased with how my compost heaps have turned out. Hopefully they'll come in really handy and I can compost a lot quicker than I was doing. So I'll have more compost for my raised beds when I put them in. And I shall now go home and try and find some more fleece online. Oh, I hate the netting. But anyway, I'm pleased with my compost heaps. So all I can say is, lovely job!